Sergeant Karahale opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt, and the air smelled like rust and smoke. She was lying on a cold metal floor, her arms chained. When she tried to sit up, pain shot through her side. Her uniform was torn, her body bruised. But her spirit was not broken. Loud voices echoed outside the bars of her cell. Strange alien words mixed with laughter and cheering. She was not alone. Other prisoners sat in nearby cages, but none of them looked human. Most were tall, scaly, or covered in armor, and all of them looked afraid. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps. The ground shook slightly with each step. Kara looked up and saw him, the monster they all feared. An 8-foot-tall alien with gray skin and sharp teeth. His eyes burned yellow like fire. His chest armor was covered in blood and metals. This was Vakra, the champion of the arena, the undefeated gladiator of the Greater Empire. He stopped in front of Kara's cage and grinned. "So this is the human," he said in a deep voice. "The weak little soldier from Earth." Kara didn't answer. She just stared at him, silent and calm. Vakra leaned closer and laughed. "Not even a scream? No begging? Maybe I'll enjoy crushing you." He slammed his fist on the bars and walked away. The crowd outside roared louder, shouting Vakra's name. Kara was taken from her cell and dragged through long, dark tunnels. The guards didn't speak to her. They just shoved her forward, ahead. Bright light poured from a large gate. She was pushed through it, and the light nearly blinded her. The arena was massive. Like a stadium made of metal and fire, thousands of aliens filled the seats. Shouting and waving flags, some threw bones, others held signs with Vakra's face. This place wasn't just for battle, it was for blood. The ground was covered in old stains, weapons, and traps. Kara was pushed into the center. A deep voice spoke through the speakers. "Tonight, the undefeated Vakra faces a new toy. A human marine." The crowd cheered wildly, laughing as if it were a joke, but Kara's eyes stayed sharp. She didn't laugh, she didn't tremble. Across the arena, a huge gate opened with a rumble. Vakra stepped out, dragging a giant blade behind him. He raised both arms and roared. The crowd responded with screams and chants. He pointed at Kara. "This won't take long," he said. "I'll break her in half." Kara didn't move. She studied him, his steps, his grip, his muscles. He was strong. Yes, but slow. She had seen worse during training on Earth. She had fought in low-gravity zones and deep space ambushes. But this was different. Here, she was alone, surrounded by enemies, and every eye wanted her to fail. As Vakra walked closer, Kara slowly lowered her stance. She didn't have a weapon, not yet, but she had something more important: focus. She remembered what her old commander told her. "Let them underestimate you. That's your biggest weapon." Vakra raised his blade high, ready to crush her with the first blow. The crowd held their breath, waiting to see the human die, but Kara moved fast. Like lightning, she rolled under the swing and came up behind him. She didn't attack yet, she just looked up at him and smiled. Vakra turned, confused for a second. His swing had missed. The crowd gasped. Some even laughed nervously. "She's quick," someone said. Vakra growled. "So the toy can move." Kara backed up slowly. She wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. She needed to know more. How he turned, how he reacted. Where he was slow, Vakra charged again, and Kara dodged once more. She touched the edge of the wall, feeling for something, a small crack in the metal, just as she hoped. She had seen these walls before in stolen maps. There were hidden weapons buried under the arena floor, leftover tech from past fights. If she could reach one, maybe she'd have a chance. The crowd began to shift. Some were no longer laughing. Some leaned forward, watching more closely. This human was not dying fast. This human was thinking, as Vakra roared in anger. Kara's fingers found something under the sand-cold metal. Thin and sharp, a broken blade. She didn't show it yet. She just held it tight, hidden in her sleeve, and smiled again. She would not fight like a beast. She would fight like a ghost. Let Vakra think she was weak. Let him laugh a little longer. Soon, he would learn. Humans don't die easy. Asterisk. The air inside the arena felt heavier. Now the crowd was louder, but their laughter had changed. It was not mocking anymore, it was curious. The human marine had lasted longer than expected, and Vakra, the 8-foot gladiator, had missed his first strike. That alone was rare, but now, the match had become something else. Kara Hale didn't move like prey. She moved like someone who had seen death many times. She kept her body low and her hands near her sides. The broken blade she found was hidden under her arm. Vakra circled her with wide, heavy steps. His blade scratched the ground, leaving marks of fury. His grin had faded, replaced by something colder. He wasn't here to joke anymore. The alien crowd began to chant slower, not out of excitement, but confusion. They didn't understand how a human with no armor, no weapon, and no backup could make their champion look like a fool. Vakra suddenly roared and lunged forward. His blade came down with full force. Kara jumped sideways just in time. The ground cracked where she had stood. Dust flew into the air, blinding Vakra for a second. Kara moved behind him again. Still, she didn't strike. She wanted more than just a wound. She wanted control. Her hand moved fast, slicing a small cut on Vakra's back with her hidden blade. It was shallow, almost harmless, but the shape of the cut was not random. It was a coded symbol, an old signal used by human soldiers. Only someone trained would recognize it. She moved again, circling to Vakra's right. Another quick cut, another symbol. Vakra growled louder, spinning wildly, but Kara had already stepped back. To the crowd, it looked like nonsense, but if anyone on Earth was watching, if anyone had hacked into the arena's camera feed, they would understand. Kara was sending a message. She was alive, she was fighting, and she had not given up. Somewhere deep in the arena walls, a hidden drone blinked red. Its lens zoomed in on Kara's movements. The drone wasn't alien. It was human tech secretly placed, secretly watching. Kara's smile was small but real now. Vakra didn't care about messages. He only cared about the fight. He screamed and charged, his arms swinging wildly. Kara ducked, rolled, and came up behind him again. Another cut, another signal, this time deeper. Vakra's blood hit the sand, black and thick. The crowd gasped. Some stood up, others leaned in. Even the announcers stopped speaking. No one had ever seen Vakra bleed like this. Kara backed away again, calm and cold. She was not playing a game, she was shaping a battlefield. Vakra raised his weapon and slammed it into the ground. He didn't hit her, but the force shook the arena. Metal spikes rose from the floor, part of the trap system. Kara barely jumped aside before one sliced the air near her leg. Vakra grinned again, thinking he had her trapped, but Kara saw something else. One of the rising spikes had loosened. A metal panel. Beneath it, something glowed, something familiar. She darted toward it, pretending to run in fear. Vakra followed, roaring, but Kara reached the panel first and kicked it loose. Inside was a power node, old human tech hidden from a past war. She slammed her hand on it, and it lit up. A soft beep echoed in her ear signal sent. She didn't know who was listening, but she hoped it was someone. Anyone from Earth. Vakra slammed into her back, throwing her across the sand. Her ribs burned. Her breath vanished, but she kept the broken blade tight in her hand. She rolled, coughing, and stood back up. Vakra charged again, this time faster. Kara raised her hand, not to strike, but to signal. She crossed two fingers across her chest. The final part of her message. The drone blinked again. Green this time. Someone had received it. Vakra didn't notice. He just saw a human still standing, and that made him furious. He lifted his blade high. The crowd screamed for blood. Deep inside the arena's walls, other eyes were watching now, and they were human. Asterisk. Asterisk. The dust in the arena hadn't settled. Kara Hale stood with one arm hanging low and blood dripping from her side. But her eyes didn't blink. They stared straight at Vakra like ice refusing to melt. The 8-foot gladiator stood taller than ever. But now, there were 3 cuts across his skin, each one marked with precision, not rage, and deep in his mind, the first seed of doubt had been planted. Kara wasn't trying to kill him, not yet. She was trying to make him think. That was more dangerous than any blade. Vakra roared and swung again. His blade screamed through the air. But Kara bent low and rolled under the strike. She came up behind him again. This time, she pressed the broken blade against his back and whispered, "You bleed just like us." He spun around too slow. His shoulder caught her elbow, knocking her sideways, but even as she hit the ground, she grinned. The crowd had gone quiet again. Some started murmuring in confusion. Others leaned toward the edge of their seats. This wasn't the battle they came to see. They wanted screams, blood, fear. But the human girl was playing a different game. From above, the hidden drone continued recording every move. Its data sent through secret channels, each of Kara's coded strikes was being translated in real time, far across the galaxy. Someone at a Dark Earth listening station saw the footage and shouted, "She's alive," the officer said. "And she's sending signals." Inside the arena, Kara moved differently now. She didn't just dodge, she danced. Her body twisted and turned with strange rhythm. Each movement a pattern, each step a message. To the aliens, it looked like she was just trying to stay alive. To humans watching, it was poetry from the battlefield. Vakra's frustration showed in every heavy breath. He pounded his fists into the ground. Metal cracked under his rage. He shouted, "Stop moving and fight me, human." But Kara only tilted her head and replied softly, "Not yet." He charged with full force. Kara ran toward a pile of broken weapons in the corner. Her boots kicked sand and bone. Then she stopped suddenly and spun around. Vakra didn't have time to slow down. He crashed into the pile with a loud crash, weapons and metal flying in all directions. Kara jumped onto a fallen spear handle and launched herself toward one of the arena's pillars. Her hands gripped a pipe sticking out from it. She climbed quickly like she had trained 100 times in Earth's zero-gravity towers. Vakra looked up, confused and enraged. "No running," he growled. Kara balanced herself halfway up the pillar. She pulled a sharp metal rod from her belt and threw it not at Vakra but at the pillar's support joint. A loud crack echoed through the arena. Part of the pillar began to lean. It cast a long shadow over the crowd. Panic spread as the upper rows began to clear. Kara dropped down and landed in a roll. The crowd was in chaos just as she planned. She used the confusion to reach the edge of the arena where the floor panels were looser. She knelt and pried one up. Beneath it, wires pulsed with weak power, old Earth tech, smuggled into this place decades ago. She ripped out a black cable and connected it to a port hidden in her uniform belt. Her pulse raced. She whispered into the cable, "This is Sergeant Kara Hale of Earth Marines. Prisoner of the Greater Arena. Signal trace required." Silence, then. A flicker of green light on her belt. Someone had heard her. The connection was weak but alive. She smiled again. The kind of smile that didn't belong in chains. Vakra saw her crouched at the edge and charged once more. But Kara pulled back just in time. She let him swing wildly and waste his strength. His breathing became heavier, slower. He was built for power, not patience. Kara was built for survival. As Vakra raised his blade one final time, Kara moved with sudden speed. She slashed one more cut across his side, deeper this time. The mark was different now, not a code but a warning. "You bleed," she said again. "And I don't stop." Vakra stumbled back, his grip shaking. For the first time in the arena's long history, the champion looked unsure, and for the first time in a long time, the crowd didn't cheer for him. They watched the human, the small figure who moved like smoke and struck like fire, and deep in their alien hearts, a new thought began to rise. Maybe this wasn't a game anymore. Maybe the human was here to win. Asterisk, the sky above the arena turned darker as the twin suns dipped behind the stone towers. A red glow spread across the walls like blood. The crowd had changed. They were no longer cheering blindly. They were whispering, wondering, waiting to see what would happen next. Kara stood in the center of the arena with her shoulders rising and falling. Her breaths were slow but deep. Her eyes never left Vakra. She had taken cuts, bruises and hard hits, but she still stood. Vakra, once confident, now circled her with caution. His steps were slower, heavier. The pain in his side showed with each breath. He roared to remind them who he was. But the crowd didn't respond like before. Their champion was bleeding. Their champion had missed too many times, and the human, the so-called weakling, was still standing, still silent, still dangerous. Kara began moving again, this time not toward Vakra, but toward the east end of the arena. That side was known as the Fire Gate. It was used for trial by heat combat. The ground there was hotter, the air full of steam vents and burning sand. No one dared fight there except the fireborn aliens. But Kara went there without fear. Vakra followed, unsure. He had never lost in any zone of the arena. But something about the Fire Gate made even him pause. The ground hissed under their feet. Steam burst up randomly, cutting vision and making the skin burn. But Kara moved with memory. She had studied this arena during her days as a Marine. Back when humans still had spies on this planet, she knew that near the Fire Gate, the heat caused old tech to loosen, and sometimes forgotten weapons or tools would rise with the pressure. Kara bent down and pressed her hand into the burning ground. The pain shot through her arm, but her fingers found something. A handle half melted but still usable. She pulled it free. It was a stun rod. Broken but buzzing faintly, Vakra stepped closer. Now growling like a wild animal, his skin steamed, his muscles tight with rage. He raised his weapon high and screamed. But Kara spun low and slammed the stun rod into the ground. It caused a small burst of blue energy, not much, but enough to throw steam in every direction. Vakra swung blindly. Kara darted through the mist like a ghost. She jabbed his knee with the broken rod and sliced his leg with her hidden blade. Vakra fell to one knee, roaring in pain. The steam cleared just enough for the crowd to see it. Their champion, down on one leg, the human, standing above him. The arena guards shifted. Some reached for weapons, but the arena laws were clear no one interferes during a trial. Kara stepped back and let him rise again. She didn't want to end it yet, not until he understood what was happening. Not until everyone did. The crowd had grown quiet. Then came a strange sound, one that had never echoed here before. A human sound, clapping. One alien in the stands had begun to clap slowly, then another. Soon the sound spread like fire through dry grass. The aliens didn't know why they clapped, but they did it anyway. Something inside them respected what they were seeing. Vakra stood again, shaking, his face twisted in fury and shame. "You should be dead," he hissed. Kara tilted her head. "And yet," she whispered. "Here I am." He charged again, and this time Kara didn't run. She met him head on, ducking under his blade and slamming the stun rod against his chest. Sparks flew, his armor cracked. He stumbled back, stunned. Kara kicked him hard in the chest and sent him crashing into one of the fire vents. The heat burst around him in red flames. His scream was not of power, it was pain. The fire gate roared behind them like a dragon. Vakra rolled out, gasping, his armor scorched and smoking. Kara stood at the center, surrounded by fire, her body burned and bruised, but her eyes shining with something ancient. Not revenge, not anger, but purpose. She raised the broken blade high, not to threaten, but to declare. She was not here to entertain. She was not a toy. She was a soldier of Earth, and she was sending a message the whole galaxy would hear inside the arena walls. Deep in the control room, a red light blinked. A signal had gone out. A trace was active, far across the stars. Earth's fleet had received her location. And now they were coming, but Kara didn't smile yet. Because she knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning. The flames behind Kara still danced as she stepped out of the fire zone. Her skin was marked with ash, her eyes sharp like broken glass. The crowd had gone from roaring beasts to silent watchers. They didn't know what to make of her anymore. She was not dying, she was not breaking, she was becoming something else. The arena guards didn't cheer. They looked at each other, unsure. The game was shifting. The human wasn't entertainment anymore. She was a threat, before Vakra could. Rise again, a loud horn echoed through the arena walls. The fire gates slammed shut, and a metal door opened at the far end. 2 large guards entered, dragging Kara away by the arms. She didn't resist. Her work was done for now. She had planted fear in their champion, and she had sent her signal. Now she needed answers. They dragged her through narrow tunnels lit by red lights. The air smelled like oil and rust. They passed cells full of beaten fighters and silent prisoners. None of them spoke as she passed, but many turned their eyes toward her. She was something new, something they didn't expect. The guards finally stopped and pushed her into a small chamber. Inside stood an alien woman with pale skin, violet eyes, and long silver armor. She looked nothing like Vakra, but her presence felt just as dangerous. She was tall, graceful, and her voice was calm like a knife. "So you are the one," the alien woman said. "You made him bleed." Kara didn't answer. She only sat on the floor, breathing quietly. The alien walked around her slowly. "I'm Treza," she said, "second in command of this arena. I have served Vakra for 12 years, but never," she paused, "have I seen him bleed." Kara looked up. "Why bring me here?" she asked. Treza leaned closer. "Because I want to offer you something," she said. "A pact." Kara narrowed her eyes. "What kind of pact?" Treza sat across from her. "Vakra's rule is old, loud, and full of pride," she said. "But the crowd, they change. They watch you now. They cheer for you. And that scares him." Kara stayed silent. Treza continued. "If you help me break him, I will help you escape." Kara frowned. "I don't trust you." Treza smiled slowly. "Good," she whispered. "That means you're smart." Kara stood, blood still dripping from her side. "I don't care about your power," she said. "I just want my people to know I'm alive. I want to go home." Treza stepped forward. "Then we want the same thing," she said. "Because this arena has no room for 2 legends. Only one will stand at the end." Kara didn't shake her hand, but she nodded once. Then the guards returned and dragged her back through the halls. That night, the arena didn't rest. The crowd stayed late, whispering, arguing. Some said Vakra was still unbeatable. Others believed the human would rise. Kara sat in her cell, wrapping cloth around her wounds. She stared at the wall, where someone had scratched names into the metal. Dozens of names now forgotten, but she would not be forgotten. Not now, not ever. Somewhere above, Vakra paced in his private chamber. His face was twisted with confusion and shame. He smashed a table and shouted at his guards. He demanded Kara be broken in the next fight, but no one answered him the way they used to. Even his own men looked unsure. That night, Kara didn't sleep. She closed her eyes, but her mind stayed sharp. Every breath she took was a step closer to the end. She knew what had to happen next. Vakra would not fall in battle, not easily. He would need to be humiliated. He would need to kneel, and when he did, the galaxy would remember. The sky over the arena turned silver on the day of the final match. Storm clouds rolled in above the metal walls. Thunder echoed in the distance like drums of war. The audience filled every seat, louder than ever before. They came not just for a fight. They came to see something end. Kara Holly stood behind the gate, her wounds still fresh, her muscles sore, but her mind was calm. She had waited for this moment, trained for it, suffered for it, and now there was only one thing left. Across the arena, Vakra stood tall. His armor darker than before, his weapon larger. He stared across the sand at the human who refused to fall. He no longer smiled. His pride had cracked, and under it was something he never thought he'd feel: fear. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "No weapons," it said. "No rules. Only one will walk out. The gates opened. Kara stepped forward with nothing in her hands. Vakra did the same. The crowd went silent. Every eye locked on the two figures walking toward each other. Like storms ready to collide, the first strike came fast. Vakra's fist flew like a hammer, but Kara ducked and slammed her elbow into his ribs. She didn't wait, she kept moving. Left, right, duck, strike. Each hit was sharp, precise. She wasn't fighting for the crowd. She was fighting for memory, for pain, for every name carved in that prison wall. Vakra grabbed her and lifted her off the ground. He threw her hard into the dirt. She coughed, rolled, and stood again. Blood dripped from her mouth, but she didn't stop. She charged, slammed her shoulder into his chest. He stumbled. The crowd gasped. The fight went on like a storm, back and forth, blow for blow. Kara's arms grew weak, her legs shook. Vakra's face was bruised, his breathing heavy. They circled each other in the blood-stained sand. One was a human marine, the other a born killer. But in this moment, they were just two warriors who refused to die. Kara stepped back, her vision blurred, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She dropped to one knee. Vakra saw it and rushed forward. But it was a trap. Kara spun and swept his legs. He crashed into the ground. The breath knocked from his chest. She climbed onto him and pressed her forearm against his throat. Her voice was a whisper. "Say it," Vakra struggled. His arms shaking, Kara pressed harder. "Say it," she repeated. The crowd leaned forward, not breathing. Vakra's eyes burned, but his strength faded. His pride was broken. He coughed, and for the first time in his life, he said it. "Mercy." The arena exploded. Not with cheers, but with silence. Not a single voice rose. They had never heard Vakra say that word. No one ever had. Kara stood slowly, her knees shaking, her arms bloody. Vakra lay on the ground, coughing, humiliated. She didn't smile. She didn't roar in victory. She just looked up at the silent crowd. One by one, aliens began to stand. Some nodded, others lowered their heads. They were not just watching a fighter, they were watching a legend being born. Trezza stood in the shadows, smiling faintly. She had seen what she needed to see, and she knew now Kara Hale was no longer just a human. She was something more. The sky above cracked with lightning. Rain began to fall, mixing with the blood and dust. And in that rain, Kara walked alone across the arena, not a prisoner, not prey, but a storm that had finally passed through. Asterisk. The rain kept falling over the arena. It washed the blood from the sand and cooled the cracked metal floor. The fire pits dimmed, and the crowd stood in silence. No one moved, no one cheered. They just watched Kara Hale walk. Each step she took echoed like thunder in their ears. Vakra didn't rise. He stayed on the ground. Face down, arms limp, the undefeated champion had fallen, not to fire, not to power, but to a human. A small soldier from a distant world, with no weapon, no armor, and no mercy in her bones. Kara stopped in the middle of the arena. She looked up at the sky, her eyes blinking against the cold rain. She was tired. Every muscle in her body screamed. But her heart was steady, and deep inside her uniform, her hidden device buzzed once. A faint green light flashed under her collar. Earth had heard her. Help was near. The arena gates opened slowly, not to guards, but to someone new. Trezza walked in, her step soft but firm. The crowd parted as she passed. Her silver armor shimmered in the stormlight. She walked up to Kara and didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, "You won." Kara nodded once. "I didn't win for them," she said. Trezza looked around at the thousands of eyes staring down. "No," she said. "You won for everyone watching from the dark." Kara looked back at Vakra, still motionless. "He'll live," Trezza said. "But he'll never fight again." Kara stepped closer to him and dropped a small broken piece of her blade at his side. A gift, or maybe a reminder. Then she turned away. The high doors to the control tower opened. And for the first time in the arena's history, Kara was not forced, not dragged. She walked in by her own choice. Inside the control room, Screens showed signals blinking from above the planet. Ships, human ships, Earth's fleet had arrived. A voice came through the speaker. Sergeant Karahale, respond. She grabbed the microphone, her hand shaking. This is Hale, she said. I'm alive. Cheers broke out on the other end. Voices of her people, her command, her team. Some cried, some shouted her name. Kara closed her eyes, letting the sound wrap around her like warmth. Treza stood beside her, watching the screens. The arena is yours now, she said. The people saw the truth. They'll follow strength. Kara didn't want power. She only wanted freedom, but she knew something had changed. The arena wouldn't go back to what it was. The people had seen too much. A shuttle landed outside the walls. Human Marines stepped out in silver suits, weapons ready. They reached her, saluted, and helped her inside. As the doors closed, Kara looked out one last time at the place where she had bled, fought, and risen. The arena was quiet now, but it would never forget her. As the shuttle rose into the sky, the crowd began to cheer, not out of habit, but from something real, from respect, from awe. And in that final moment, under the fading storm, one name echoed across the stars louder than any before: Kara.